Welcome to another segment of Politics Done Right. I'm here once again with Bobby Rodrigo. Bobby is now in Portland. Bobby's been doing a whole lot of work with getting the hungry fed out there. We know the pandemic is really raising havoc on a whole lot of people, but he wanted to see for himself as well the protests. Bobby Rodrigo, how are you doing today, my brother?
I'm excellent. How is you? I'm glad to be here, of course, as always. Thank you for having me. Excuse me turning my head a lot. I am driving a large truck full of frozen fish because I'm still doing the food distribution. And I'm going to be heading over to the community hub, the Red, that I spoke about the last time I was on your show. And we're going to be doing some more distributions today.
So you have a lot of fish in your frozen fish in your truck ready to go to the distribution center to feed a whole lot of the hungry.
Yes, indeed. They also have dry goods, and they also have CSA boxes, which are community source agriculture. Essentially, people buy from local farms and they opt in. They do a subscription service, and we're going to be doing deliveries right to the house of the people who weren't able to show up on Sunday. We did a bunch of distribution on Sunday.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you're going to give them some cooked food already, or just the frozen packages?
No, it's going to be the produce, dairy, dry goods, grains, as well as frozen proteins. Fish is part of it, chicken and meat. It was actually a marvelous distribution, marvelous products with the people that we worked with, the Equitable Giving Circle, Eco Trust. They were all involved in this on Sunday. It was their event. We were just adding to their event, and they have people who subscribe to to receive these locally sourced products, and they have 400 of them going out. 400 families are fed when they do this. So not everybody was able to show up on Sunday. It was about 100 degrees. And not everybody showed up, but they still get there. So what we'll do now, today and tomorrow, is we'll deliver the ones to the people who were not able to show up. And then there's a lot, mass transportation, the pandemic, a lot of reasons why people can't show up, not just the heat. So then, because they're subscribers, then we'll go and I'm going to help them do the distribution today and tomorrow because I have the frozen fish. So we're going to add it to their boxes and then distribute it throughout the community of Portland.
Excellent. Now, Bobby, a couple of days ago, you did some videos that I'm gonna kind of incorporate it into our interview here, where you actually got tear gassed in Portland because you just had to see it for yourself. But before I ask the question, what percentage of the total area of Portland is going through these types of protests right now?
Yeah, so this is important. I've actually been there 5-6 times last week. I've been to the nighttime 2 or 3 times, and then I go in the daytime to show the people the area because I think that's a very relevant question, and that's why I did it. I was actually watching the press secretary for the White House discussing and then also the community leaders had a press conference that I heard about, and they were complaining about the impact on businesses and residences. And when I went down there the first time I went there was at nighttime protest. And when I went down there, that didn't make sense to me. So I went back in the day to do a recon. And it's 1 square block. Now, I'm from New York City, and a square block in New York City is huge. This is not a New York City square block. I don't even think it's half of a New York City square block. What we have on one side of the park is, 4 sides. So on one side is the federal courthouse building, which sits across the street from there's a park. Everything happens in the park all day, all night. So there's a park that sits there. That's 1 square block. And across the street on one side is the federal courthouse that has been the main focus of the protesting. And then on the opposite side of the park is another state court building. And then to the one side of the park is another park. And they actually were in there when I was there. I was filming it. I didn't know what I was filming, but I filmed it. They were removing the benches in that park. And then on the opposite side is just a corporate office building that isn't open at night and actually is very rarely open anyway. So there are no residents and there were no businesses that are being impacted directly right inside that 1 square block. So any other comments about that is a complete lie. And when you're walking, when you're at the protest, so first time I went, I walked to the protest. I parked a few blocks away. I met a friend of mine who lives here, who had been there before. She suggested that we go to this particular spot and park. I get there, no problem, I park. I get out, we walk to the protest. We were about 3.5 blocks away, 4 blocks away, 2 one way, 2 another way. And I didn't even hear the protest until I got right on top of it, because there's nothing but big buildings around there. So all of this, there's no impact on anything in the community other than right there. Now, mind you, yes, people are walking to the park, leaving the park, running from the park when they're gassed. Yes, I understand that. But as far as impacting anything that may be going on, first of all, there's nothing open in Portland after 10 o'clock. When they went to their phased opening, like, for example, the bars and restaurants, they have to all close at 10 o'clock. So there's no, like, bar.
I think you're talking about downtown Portland at the courthouse, 1 square block. So, I mean, if you go 5 square blocks in either direction and there are any businesses there, there's zero impact.
They're closed. They're closed.
But there's also no impact.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's no impact. There's no, a lot of the places have, close by have put up plywood, and some of them have murals, graffiti, whatever. I mean, it just depends on which one it is on them. But the majority of the area isn't even touched at all. When I walked through the first time, I filmed, the streets as I was on my way there, because mind you, I don't have a clue what I'm getting ready to walk into. So I'm filming it because I want to have a clue. And it just, all the rhetoric that they're talking about the impact, which is why I went back in the daytime, has nothing to do with it. And one of the things I discovered in the daytime, and I have advanced my relationship with, is they have these tents there. And the majority, the big part of that, I guess we'll call it a mobilization. They've been there since day one that this started. And they have been feeding people for free. Anybody who walks up gets fed for free. And they're not even part of the protest. They're there to support the community. And then another tent is there to have free first aid stuff. And then another tent there, which is more towards the protesting, is like an art tent. You can go there and have somebody draw a picture of you or something like that, almost like a street fair. And they're not even there for the protest. They're there for the community as a whole. So I interviewed one of the leaders of it the other day, and he's kind of annoyed at some of the things that have been happening, because he's not, like you said, he's not really part of the protest, and he doesn't like to be involved in it or have any impact like that. Sometimes when they gas, it gets on, the stuff gets on the food or some of the things, so he's got to make sure and pick them up and get them out of there, for example. So, I mean, there's all these dynamics going on. But I did a complete video of the entire area to show everybody this is what it looks like in the daytime. So this is the truth. Whatever you want to make of it, this is the truth.
Now, what's interesting is you got something that kind of irked you the other day, is that some guys went on TV who claimed to be civil rights leaders that decided to talk out against the protests. And your question is, why the hell aren't you here if you think there are other people speaking for the protest erroneously? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the whole thing was, civil rights leaders say that the Portland protests have lost their message. Now we're at day 61 or something right now. I lost track, but I'm pretty sure it's day 61. And they're saying that they lost the message, and just just the headline alone annoyed me, because I'm like, if you're a so-called civil rights leader, why aren't you out here leading and talking to the community and seeing what the messages are that they have? The entire, I've been going to it for a week. So mind you, in that perspective, I've been going here a week. There are no leaders here. Mainstream media is not here, except every now and then they'll have somebody, walking around with a photograph, and then everybody will do an article on the basis of one article, which is what our media does anyway. Like the other day, the New York Times had somebody that had quoted, and I've read the same quote in, 10 other places. The New York Times guy said da-da-da-da-da. So nobody's here. They don't do that anymore. Our media doesn't hit the ground running like they used to. They just show up and do it. They don't do it. So they're not here. And the civil rights leaders are not here. There's nobody out there leading these people or finding out what it is they want, or engaging the government, whether it's the federal government or the state government or the city government, on anything that's going on here. The people who are on the ground are just the people who live here who are pissed off. And they're absolutely on point with supporting Black lives. You know, when I say Black Lives Matter, I'm talking about the Black people of the world. I'm not talking about any organization. I can care less about organizations unless I work directly with them or I vetted them. You know, when you're talking about, they're pissed off that the federal government is here behaving the way they have been, dealing with people in the streets, beating people, snatching people, not identifying themselves initially. You know, again, that's not what's happening today that I've seen. This is what I'm hearing. So I want to qualify, because I always qualify with what I know.
I mean, I have a lot of respect for you, because there's one thing that you pointed out. Most people that are going out there to see these things, they would see, let's say some folks behave in the wrong way. They will simply ignore it. I think you actually said that the government behaved justifiably at a point when you were there, because, explain.
Yeah, so, you know, so one of the things that was happening, so the night I got gassed, I was in my car and in my SUV, and I drove up right literally to the front line. It was right in front of me. There was nothing in between where I was. It was at an angle, so I could look down the front line, you know, so, but they put up a new barrier fence. So I'm looking from the side right down the front of it. Now, mind you, they have a barrier down the sides of the building, but not even all the way around. Nobody even goes to the back of the building to do anything. I mean, this is how small in impact of the.
Not only that nobody goes behind the building shows that there are not a whole lot of people of ill repute out there.
Well, there is, but they're all focused to the front door. Nobody's
Right.
going down the sides of the building. Nobody's going around the back. You know, when you talk about destruction and stuff like that. But
no, what I mean is, they said that they, according to Barr, if they weren't there, they wanted to bring down the building.
Oh, that's ridiculous, and they can never do it anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, we're talking about concrete and steel. You know, this
Right.
is not. We're not talking about a house, so that's absurd. So I'm watching this. I'm watching it, and it is midnight when I'm there. So the story, when I first got there, the story was that everything happens from 11 o'clock on. That's when the gas comes. It's like clockwork. So I thought that was interesting. So I get down there, and I'm sitting there, and it's midnight, and then people start shooting fireworks at the building over the barrier. Now, I understand for those people that say the responses are not proper, that, oh, well, it's just fireworks, nobody's hurting anything. Let me tell you something. In police policy, you do not let that escalate, because that can go anywhere. It is proper within a policy structure of the police. Any police department in the country will tell you that we have to respond to somebody shooting fire at a building, regardless. So that's when the gas started. So in my opinion, from the standpoint of a policy standpoint, it is a proper response for them to break up the crowd in the front that is shooting fire at the damn building. So then when the gas came out, and I got gassed, it was like, I had my mask, but I didn't have my eye protection. It was hilarious. I'm an idiot. So anyway, so it all comes in the car, and then there's people in front with the leaf blowers, you know, and you know, blocking it, which helped me a little bit. But at the same time, when they came out and gassed, then somebody threw a big, whatever it was, I have no idea. It could have been a box.
Molotov cocktail.
No, it wasn't that bad. No, hell no. No, that, because a Molotov cocktail has gasoline in it,
Right.
And that creates a fire that is big. That's not a small thing.
So it wasn't one of those.
No, hell no. Thank God. No, because then they're in the street whipping some ass, to be honest with you. If that happens, they're in there. This was more like somebody threw a box or something that was on fire. It was a big thing, but it went out right away. So it wasn't something like that. Because when you throw a Molotov with the gas, when the bottle breaks, it spreads. Because,
yeah.
No, that's not. No, hell no. So anyway, so then they gasped, but they didn't come out. So I had to go clear my eyes, which took a minute. So I drove around the other side of the park, and I sat there to recover. And then I did a report from there. And then I got out and went down to the tent. And then I walked back to the front line. It wasn't driving. I was standing there. And again, they wound up, while I was in the car on the other side of the gas, they wound up gassing again. And then they didn't come out. Then I walked to the front line, and nothing was happening. And then I waited again. And then they came out. They came out and did it 2 more times. But I have to tell you, and it's interesting. And first of all, I sat at the corner. I got back in my car and drove back close to it. And I was just looking at the crowd. I wanted to get to know the people that were there just by look. And without question, at least 75% of the people that I saw walking by me physically from the event was white. Bottom line. And you know, Portland is 90% white. So why is that a surprise? It's not a surprise. You know, so then the next day, when I was not there, but I got film from it, they did a very, very coordinated Black Lives Matter thing that's also on my wall, with lights on and stuff like that. And my comment to the civil rights leader goes, well, I guess they at least have remembered that message. Because unless you're in there talking to, you know, I mean, it's like, I guess they're still on point here, at least on one issue. You know, so it's just, to me, it's so irresponsible for people to see news. Like, they know what the hell's going on growing up. Civil rights leaders were on the ground. You know, some people have pushed back with saying, oh, they got killed and this, that, and that. Well, you know what? So if you die, you die. But if you need to stand up to something, get out there and stand up. That's what these people are doing. So if you want to know what's going on, go out and talk to them and then be a leader and then go to the government and say, this is what we want. That's not what's going on here. It's ridiculous.
What has happened, Bobby, is a lot of times what we have with these civil rights leaders and other leaders is they've become complacent. You know, they are part of the system now. It's all a.
I would even take it another level. I would argue that we haven't had a civil rights leader since the late 60s, early 70s. Mandela and Walesa from Poland were probably the last true civil rights leaders that we've ever had in this world, if you think about it. In our country. You know, I mean, who have you seen out there every single march, an important march that you see in this country, let's say? Since, we could go to L.A., we could talk about the different major protests, Charlotte, all these things. When have you seen one or more of the same, of a civil rights leader in this country out there every single time? It doesn't exist, whether it's a politician or anybody. I can't think of anybody. And I go to these damn things. I mean,
I hear you, Bobby. Hey, Bobby, give me a closer here. Let me tell. Let's have a closer here as far as what you think is gonna be the outcome of the government negotiation with the folks in Portland now. Now that it seems like the government may want to have an exit out of Portland now that they've been exposed.
Well, you know, I guess you know, to everybody nationally, you know, you got to support your communities. There's got to be no violence, no destruction. You have to identify people who are doing it, and don't go into the conspiracy end of it. Just be honest. What you see is what's happening. If you see somebody doing bad, the key is to be peaceful. Do not instigate. And this is the same thing for the police. You know, the police need to behave properly and not go overboard. You know, and as far as people talking to the government and exit strategies, I'm not aware of anybody who's talking to them, but we do need somebody or more people. I talked to some community leaders yesterday. I was really, really impressed with who it was. I'm going to be interviewing them anyway because they're here. And I'm working with people who've lived there their whole lives. Portland's not going anywhere. I'll tell you that. They don't play when it comes to things like this. They're not going anywhere. This is going to go on for a while. Where it goes, I don't know. But it would be nice to have some structure and have some conversations that are productive. And that's
now, Bobby, as far as calling out the truth, I just want to let you know, as far as a lot of the destruction that occurred in Minneapolis, yeah, we know now for sure that a lot of that was instigated by a few white supremacists wanting to create an issue. And in fact, there's going to be an arrest warrant, or likely an arrest warrant, for allegedly a person named Mitchell Carson, who they had called the Umbrella Man, which they found breaking stuff up and writing, "We want free stuff," all that kind of stuff on windows. Just a matter of information, I think, necessary.
Yeah, no, look, hey, it happens. Without question, it happens. It is a thing for real. You know, the one thing I will tell you, you know, which is not exactly a popular decision, but, you know, I'm a self-defense guy, as you know. And you know, I don't believe in offensive anything, but I'm a defensive guy with all the force that is coming at me. And if the state is attacking me and being violent to me, I have no problem being violent back to the state. You know, and it's a complicated thing to say, but it's what I believe in. You know, when I think of George Floyd, I think about, okay, yeah, it was 9 seconds, but I think about what would my reaction be if that was my son? Well, I know exactly what it would be. And
I know what it would be too.
Yeah, so it's a complicated thing, but it's not. So, you know, some of the things that are happening, I'm like, oh yeah, that's okay. because it's the state doing it. You know, when I see, you know, and it's not a popular position. And I'll mention one more thing from the standpoint of politics. When Obama was president, you know, one of the big conspiracies that was running around the world was him federalizing the police, you know, and sending them in everywhere. And there were troops running around. I heard a week and a half ago that there's some right-wing political people that believe that there were troops crossing our border. And I'm like, seriously, you really want me to jump into this? You know, and these are some of my brothers who are in the military, and it just cracks me up how that happens. You know, so now the narrative is the other way. Well, we think it should be federalized because it's the left doing this. You know, and to me, it's not about the right and the left. It's about the community who's fighting. What the hell difference does it make what their political description? Whenever we do the labels, we create the division. You know,
power, brother, power.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
But look,
you got to
anyhow,
stick with your community.
Bobby, look, it's a pleasure again. Keep up the good work out there in Portland. I'll be back. We'll have a little talk again on next week. All right?
Yeah, and Feed the Mass is going to be feeding people today, also with the fish, right at the Red in Portland, the community hub on Salmon Street. If anybody's around, come get yourself a marvelous meal with fish or with a vegan, created by the chefs that are in here. They'll be doing it at, I believe they start feeding at 11 a.m. Come check it out.
Bobby Rodrigo from New York to Portland, Oregon. Have a good one, brother.
Stay cool.
I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.